Cool. I'm sorry about that. I had some audio issues. So yeah, we're just going over part two, Astrotheology, Aries, Taurus, and Gemini. Everyone hear me okay? Cool. Sounds good. Let me see, start video there. Let's share the screen quick. See, so we have the astrochemical physiological chromatic chart, starting Aries at the head, Taurus at the neck, Gemini. The astrotheological story we talked about, Mark, starting in Aries, when the Christ solar archetype is acting rebellious against family traditions, and when he is seen, it's noted that they all drop what they're doing very quickly and run after the Savior, the Lord, almost. And they said that scholars even were trying to figure out, why were these people just kind of dropping what they were doing and chasing some guy into the town who they didn't know exactly who they was. So they tried saying that perhaps they knew him, from a past interaction, and that he must have signaled for them to go with them. But that's not true at all. So the truth is, that's showing Aries the initiative, the spiritual initiative to get up and to walk and go forth on your mission, essentially. So let's see here. And to follow your spiritual intuition without even questioning it, because at times you have to just take the leap of faith. That leap of faith is initiation, which is symbolized by that Aries archetype. See, it says the newly initiated Son of God is. Hold on, sorry about that. Let's see here. So, in the baptism of John, we see the themes of beginning, starting again, turning one's back on the past, are very much in evidence in these early chapters of Mark. The gospel opens up with the words, the beginning of the gospel of Jesus Christ, and in his depiction of John the Baptist, we can detect Mark's conviction that Jesus is qualitatively different from all his predecessors, John included. He is the greater than John. John is not worthy to loosen the strap of his sandals, which is an indication of Pisces, going in from the age of Aries to Pisces. These characters take on the personal aspects of the psychology that takes place within our body. So if we tap into these stories, we can see that these personifications come to life. So at this point, add with fire, so with Holy Spirit, and at this point Matthew and Luke add with the fire, reflecting the fire sign Aries, the baptism of fire of that cardinal sign. So even it does not have the account of Jesus' baptism by John the Baptist, but it does describe an encounter between the two men in which Arian symbolism is clear. It says the next day John saw Jesus coming towards him and said, "Look, the Lamb Amos of God has taken away the sins of our world." And as Bill Donahue explains, that process within us takes place when we utilizes the force of the chemical hormones in the endocrine system correctly by sense control. When we control our senses and our shepherd staff, which would be the spinal column, then we can reach our inner spring, which is Aries. So all the four seasons we experience within ourselves. So it doesn't have to be spring to experience spring. Spring being the renewal state of mind. So every time this process takes place, the mind is reset, kind of like a computer is reset, like reset and cleaned essentially. Or like let's say you have like maybe an engine, like it's almost like the engine's replaced, brand new, born again. So it's initiation. So they're all dropping what they're doing and just following the Lord right into the town. They're not second guessing themselves. And on the spiritual journey, if you're very skeptical and very in this book he said, why did they not investigate Jesus or have a police investigation or have a lot of evidence? Instead they just took the leap of faith following the intuition. So it's just teaching a spiritual message, an eternal spiritual truth of following your inner intuition, almost at the drop of a hat. And to when you're going on the spiritual journey, to go all into it, because if you're half-witted about it or even speculative, some of the doors close to the occultist or the spiritualist or the mystic, because some of the faculties shut down when one becomes a skeptic or doubter, or someone becomes alluded to only materialistic views. So that part of the brain shuts down, and then these people become historical figures So he announces the one as one preparing the way as the forerunner legal exoteric Judaism in the person of John was now giving way to another religious approach in the person Jesus. In this way, the ram was to hand over to the fish, the head of Aries was to defer to the feet of Pisces, a process alluded to in John's remark about the sandal strap. The newly initiated Son of God is immediately driven into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. This is reminiscent of the other Aryan figures of the Bible, Abraham and Moses. See, Abraham and Moses are the Aries figures. Jesus is the Jupiter, Sun, and Pisces figure in Aquarius. But he also takes on the other forms as well as Aries as well, because the stories convey this message in very. Sometimes they use like a literal symbol, like the Lamb of God or the sandal strap or the fisher of men, but then they sometimes use a more subtle symbol aspect, like when they're saying that. Remember that he's kind of rebellious to his mom when she's looking for him, and he's like, "Didn't you know I was going to be here anyway?" That's Aryan. And then when they're dropping their fishing poles and dropping their shovels and stuff and just running after Jesus because he just, they randomly seen him. That is also Aries impulsiveness, but we're transmuting the impulsiveness to a spiritual level of like the full tarot card, essentially taking that first leap into the physical incarnation to be individualized from that supreme monad, so that you have your particular individualized center of consciousness that gives birth to that Aries. Aries being the I am. You have to have that first. That's the child of the zodiac. First is the I am, then it's the I have, then it's the I think, then I feel, then I will. As you go all the way from John to Aries, John is the intermediary between these two archetypes. Mark's brief account of the incident, Matthew and Luke, are much longer. It should not lead us to underestimate its significance. As you go all the way from John's significance, the wilderness represents all the terrors that beset the spiritual seeker. Henry James himself, born under the sign of Aries, puts it like this. Every man who has reached even his intellectual teens begins to suspect that life is no farce, that is not genteel comedy, even that it flowers and fructifies on the contrary, out of the profoundest tragic depths of the essential dearth in which its subject roots are plunged. The natural inheritance of everyone who is capable of spiritual life is unsubdued forest where the wolf howls and the obscene bird of night chatters. So, when you go through this process here, we're doing Aries, Taurus, and Gemini. Next time we'll be going into these three. So we're working with these three. We're working with the child of the zodiac. This is the adolescent, adult, as it gets into the elder phase of the feet. And John the Baptist and Jesus being so closely related is because Adam Kadmon wraps his feet around and is able to touch the head, or Jacob the heel catcher. So that potency of Aries is self-renewal. So that chapter is always talking about this diagram here, very important. Where is that diagram? There it is. Aries. What themes are there? Baptism of Jesus, beginning of the ministry, theme of newness, 12 apostles, new Israel, and sense of urgency. So when springtime comes, we have to initiate the sense of urgency. We tap into that Aryan influence. And during the spring equinox, you can have that initiation. We talked about doing the mantras of the pineal gland, activating the cerebrum, doing more yogic exercises associated with the head. Right, and then Taurus, when Taurus comes, the book changes. He starts talking about sowing the seeds, the parables of growth, the bull, Krishna and his bulls, agricultural imagery, and this light separates. We have the duad, because that I am comes into I have and into I think. So even though the story is talking about the physical occurrences that take place in the physical life, it's also talking about pre-mortal existence and before that subtle realm of these archetypes came into being through the physical realm. And finally, in Gemini, which is the theme of duality and the legion and the double-mindedness. So this legion within us has Uspensky and the fourth way teachers. The fourth way teaches the Raha Yoga, which is the mixture of the layman karma yoga, the intellectual jnana yoga, and the devotional bhakti yoga combined into the fourth way, which is awakening consciousness and doing all three at the same time. So you're working with your mind, your emotions, and your motor physical body at the same time. And what you're doing is you're eliminating the legion of all the separate personalities and all the separate archetypes and all the separate individualized aspects of your consciousness. And you are taking them and creating a center of consciousness by mastering your Gemini, mastering the double-minded. In the Bible, it says the double-minded man is, what does that quote say? I must remember that. Okay, he is a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. And that's just saying that when you're depolarized, you don't have the proper polarization and you're just left brain or too much in the right brain, or you are thinking one way, having all these spiritual goals and becoming positive and becoming awake consciously and understanding universal spiritual laws, but then on the other side, you see a shadow side, a side that is completely opposite of all of that, and that is selfish and is almost like a double face. And this has nothing to do with the actual zodiac of Aries, Gemini, just each zodiac sign symbolizes the behavior and aspect that is a theme in all humanity. Hence, all humanity have the pride of Leo. All humanity has attachment of Cancer, the crab. All humanity has the double-mindedness of Gemini. All humanity has the stubbornness and vanity of Taurus. All humanity has the impatience and wrath and unstability of Aries. So they all have their different negative functions, not just relating to whether or not you are that sign. It doesn't matter. It just, if you're that sign, you may have prominent aspects or even be able to notice it more. You may be able to see it in yourself more in others, but that doesn't necessarily mean that, a Taurus doesn't have a negative Leo aspect, because all of us have to create the philosopher's stone by going through all 12 of these processes one by one, as we've done in the previous lectures, to go through all of these lessons from the beginning in order to have just the cosmology and understanding, as well as the certain initiatory practices that we've kind of combined and worked on towards this point, so that we can kind of catch up, so that when we're going into the winter mysteries, we can understand that entombment of the Lord, the Christ, and how that going into the underworld or the tomb, that crucifixion, and how that brings light in within us. So essentially, in the winter time, our spiritual internal willpower and all of our faculties are enhanced, because it's kind of, for whatever reason, like the figure eight. What goes on in here is also sometimes that depletion of light that you see in the north is an increase of light within. Because sometimes in the spring and summer, like, we're more in a more stubborn nature, kind of a little bit more animalistic. It's more in the winter time that we actually go within ourselves to be able to, and also obviously in other hemisphere that would be opposite, but generally speaking, we're just kind of referring to what exactly does winter do to us. It immobilizes the body in a way, sedates, puts you in a state of sedation, allows you to explore the internal realms more so than when you have to, work more, say when the sun's bright in Taurus. So this gospel, this book, helps you understand all of the spiritual mysteries and keys that you acquire on your journey, as you go through this kind of drama theme within yourself. So all these short journeys that take place in all the towns from Galilee, all the different, like when they're transporting to go to the inn or go to give birth to Jesus here, and the wise men are traveling, all that's Gemini, Thomas, the twins, Tunis, brothers, the double miracle, Taurus, all things about growth, the seeds, parables of the farmer, production, wealth, profit. When he's talking about the taxpayer, he's trying to transmute his lust for money to give up what he give up everything he has to inherit the kingdom of heaven. And that doesn't mean that everyone who has money does, but he was saying for him particularly, it was an issue. And then here, of course, Aries, the impulsiveness. So if we combine and we prepare all of the rituals and initiations to correspond to each proper zodiac at each given time, the power is enhanced. So this coming spring, that's the thing, when March comes, start working on the head mantras, which would be E. And when Taurus comes, you start working on the throat mantra, E. And when Gemini comes, you start working on the mantra O, and so on and so forth. So you're going down the body, and then you're also understanding that in each of these um, seasons, those astrological influences are embedded into the outside realm. So that's why it's so important to get the morning sun, that morning dose from when that sun first comes up. It hits you with those astrological rays. Now, the special days like March 21st, September 23rd, all the equinoxes and solstices are all amplified. So each one of these has a like a seasonal cyclical religious merit. And when we say religious, we mean that just connecting with that unitine principle within that is represented as the Jesus or the Christ in the story, and how essentially to emulate that by transmuting all of our selfish psychological behaviors that we continue to go on. So sometimes when you read some of these stories and from that perspective, and you spend maybe, let's say, like 45 minutes reading and contemplating it from that perspective of it not being literal, and you go to sleep with that, then you will be able to find yourself in a dream loop that will help you have those same kind of messages and occurrences take place, and you'll carry it with you into your sleep. And then when you wake up, you will have an output of like a solution. So each time, sometimes these stories help you tap in Kabbalistically to different various images within your psyche and your inner being, so that you can promote and able to establish those aspects. So in Aries, we understand consciousness in the center, the pineal gland. Taurus, we understood speaking, mantras, vocalization, which is one of the most important practices. And then Gemini, we have the breathing. And then being aware that the breath and the air manifest from the ether, and that there's the pranic particles within the air, and that by breathing it in, and by having that understanding, you can utilize that power. Animals don't have the ability to consciously do a breathing exercise. They do unconscious breathing exercises at their own rhythm. But humans are the only ones that are able to utilize the pranic breath consciously, because breath is the bridge of consciousness and unconsciousness. It's automatic, but at the same time it isn't. There's times where people can lose their ability to automatically breathe, so they actually have to consciously breathe. So it is the bridge to both. So when you utilize the force of Gemini, you're tapping into that bridge between the conscious and subconscious self, the part of you that's automated and the part of you that's not, the part of you that can make changes to the automated functions. Once that's realized and the breath is utilized, because animals cannot just simply look at themselves and say that I'm going to utilize this breath for pranic means, humans can utilize that breath of life that Jehovah Elohim breathed into Adam Kadmon, the breath of life, figuratively giving life to all beings, the breath of Brahma. So when we utilize that breath and we take in those consciousness, even as the great Mikhail Ivanov said, that you can even extract all the minerals that you need, or if you master this process, you're able to extract minerals from the molecular level from the air, and help nourish your system through those means. But essentially, those breathing exercises help to clear the various channels of the body in preparation um, for that fire to ascend. But generally speaking, if you're on the path and you end up becoming a righteous person who does good and follows the spirit of intuition, the breathing patterns for your body happen in a very slow, peaceful manner, very rather than a coarse and noisy way of breathing, very shallow from the chest. Then you're unable to access the more subtle realities of the breath, which would then allow yourself to have a clean mind, clean chemistry. Um, so the breath is able to tap into the control of the thoughts. You can control the thoughts by managing the breath. You can manage the breath by using your thoughts. They go hand in hand. And because the breath is able to be automated as well as not, it serves as the bridge between those realms. Gemini being the perceiver and the perceived, and then the transcendence of both into that third person aspect that each one of us has that individualized form of, but at the same time is not necessarily attached to a body. So that kind of finishes up that aspect of Aries, Taurus, and Gemini. And then in the next segment, we're going to be going into the next 3 signs of the zodiac, all astrotheologically, and going also into the Devil's Pulpit by Reverend Robert Taylor, because his information is vital as well. I like this guy's the Gospel Secret, the Secret of the Zodiac and the Gospel of Jesus, the one we're reading from. But Devil's Pulpit definitely has some raw material that definitely needs to get out there for sure. So yeah, just want to open up and see how you guys are doing. If you have anything you want to share, any questions.
Hey man, yeah, that was awesome as usual. One thing I've also been thinking about recently was also the concept of Pandora's box. I think at some point I remember Santos bringing it up briefly a long time ago, but I don't remember when or where. Um, I haven't looked if anyone has covered it extensively on the Academy, but
Yep, we'll go into it right now.
hell yeah.
Yep, right now, Pandora's box. So we have the cube of Saturn, right? So we have that box of Saturn. Pandora's box is the human body rolled up into that box. And Pandora's box was the first time that humans decided to act in a way of shame. And like when you open the first Pandora's box, according to it would be falling from your angelic state of non desire and acting upon that animalistic nature for the first time and becoming dense. And then you give birth to all. Now you have that shame and guilt and fear that's passed on to everyone. And you've opened Pandora's box. Because now the desire has been left out. Like, not desire is bad, but like we were talking about, like the first time someone, when you do something, when humans commit a very bad crime, right?
Yeah.
They open a box. That Pandora's box leaks out and evil takes over. And you could say that the first time that happened is the semi-responsible for all evil. It's kind of figurative, but essentially you could see cause and effect, right? Or the first time someone consciously decided to harm someone else, when was it? We refer to it as Pandora's box. And because of it being a box, we refer to that as the physical carnal nature. And opening also relates to Kundalini science. When you open Pandora's box and you lose all that satisfaction that you feel empty in a desert. So that you need to, so it's basically just an allegory of how desire leaks out.
Yeah. Nice, thank you. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
earlier thinking it was just like another form of retelling of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden.
Yep.
Um, yeah,
Exactly. That's what it is.
yeah.
I like that better. That's a good way to put it. Yeah, that's a simple explanation for what it is basically. How evil, another story of how evil gets out of the box.
Yeah,
And usually it all has to do with consciously deciding, right? The body follows the mind follows the body almost, right? You got to get the body and the mind tuned together to
yeah,
follow the higher centers. The tree of life is the higher centers, and the tree of knowledge is like, basically saying like, I don't know. I'd say the tree knowledge of good and evil is essentially saying that you're going to step outside of your zone of what you know is right, what you know you should do, and take a dip into something that you know you genuinely know inside is wrong, and
Yeah,
you do it anyway. Then you feel the shame and the guilt and the pain, and then you know it's all that psychological story. But it's also a story of how the soul deceives itself into finding itself led astray.
yeah,
I think there's a
Mr.
symbolic
Martin.
representation too with Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, square and the cube, right? Or square and the circle. The circle equals a square, well, the square being physical, earthly, the circle being spiritual. It's the same circumference, the same area it matches, but with the man that's in the middle, the center point, the navel, where the seed is born. It's kind of the center point of all of that. But when you square the cube, right, you get the same thing. That's that earthly. That's that separation of that, the earthly square versus the circle, the spiritual circle. If that makes
Yep,
sense.
exactly. Yep. So back then they had such a vivid experience of all these archetypes. So we have to just learn how to use the Bible kind of like they did in the mystery schools. You can use it meditatively. Like I said, go reading it, kind of tripping out before you go to sleep. Go to bed with those thoughts. You kind of find yourself into that theme, awakens some of the archetypes within yourself. And Samuel Ellen War said that if you're under real negative, chaotic impulses and problems, reading the Bhagavad Gita or the Upanishads or the Quran or even the four Gospels, Mark, John, Luke, purify the aura field. Just because they're instilled with ancient and eternal wisdom of time immemorial, unpolluted. A lot of people say the Bible's polluted, but at the same time, a lot of things in those Bibles that they think are polluted are just more symbols and metaphors. So
I
it's
think
hard for
there's
me to say
something
that.
to those days that you're talking about, those like the four, those four times the solstices, the equinox, that's the archangels or the archangles of light. Like that's why all the mound builders built all these, sites to see cleared out for as far as they could see to get that certain angle of sunlight to come
And
in.
each one gives a different ray of intelligence, right? Each one's endowed with a
Yeah,
different feeling, essence. Every day is an angel, right?
right.
And every day is different.
But
Stantos said this already.
but internally you're sending that energy up through your chakras or resistors, and you're mimicking what when the sun goes into Aries and goes into spring, you're throwing that inner light into your right and opening up the right hemisphere of the brain, which you're mimicking what the sun's doing in the sky
Yep.
versus in your brain.
When it sits at the right hand of the Father, too,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, it's really cool when you find out that happens. I feel like we're brought into the world thinking so like we're alienated, right? When we don't know that those seasons. I mean, wouldn't it be awesome if you found that out in first grade?
oh
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
That,
Yeah.
that like this that the cloudy days happen inside,
Mm-hmm.
sunny days are something inside, that outside phenomena is also inside, but not in sync. I think it's really important to know that it's not in sync. Everything's different sync. Month,
Mm-hmm.
year, month, day, right? Everything has its own cog. Like the
Yep.
human cog, it doesn't matter if it's winter outside. You could be in spring if you chose to. It's a spring and winter could be a daily thing. It doesn't have to be, but also on a deeper level, yes, there is that backdraw, that background of spring, right? You have a support in spring, right? A potential to be pretty happier than winter. But in winter, you do have a great opportunity to go within and explore that underworld.
Yeah.
To save souls. Save souls is save energy from Malkuth. Where's Malkuth? Saving energies from the demons.
So Gemini, the lungs, or Jesus, as the twin, Thomas. A lot of people talk about carbon, 666. But then if you go in the next step up, it's nitrogen. It's 777, seven protons, seven electrons, seven neutrons. If you go in the next one, it's oxygen. 888, which in gematria is Jesus, 888.
No, wow.
And so oxygen, you know what I mean? Is it, is it,
Yeah, and 888 is even the sun too.
it's the right, exactly. Yeah.
Leo, the sun, infinity, and the halo. And halo meditation is very important.
There's something in the Bible as well. And I think
The
it kind
figure
of,
eight.
it talked, yeah, it meant when you're meditating that there's something with the with the DMT or that deep meditation, you produce more nitrogen. And then so when you mix that when you're do your deep fast breathing, you're mixing the oxygen faster with that nitrogen, you're creating nitric oxide. And then there's something in the Bible as well that talks about if the two could learn, or Jesus talks about if the two could learn to be as one, they could move stones or move boulders. And it's
Yeah, if the
opening
two becomes one, and it's like the whole thing he says is like a meditation posture. He's like, put the hand in the place of a hand, a foot in the place of the foot, you know, the eye in a place of an eye. And then he said what you said too, make the male, the female one, the inside like the outside. And it's kind of like, yeah, just what you're saying, and going into your going real into that portal within yourself.
Yeah, I was just thinking about it right there. Just what I'm getting from this is just essentially just goes back to just being consistent. If I'm getting this right, just keeping earlier when you said how yeah yeah when you were talking earlier about Gemini, how you must eliminate the different personalities within and unify all aspects within. This sound sometimes all people say be genuine, be honest.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and notice the different personalities. Notice that, you know, a part of, in what book was it that it was saying that Gemini was this one? So many different aspects, How can someone like all these different things, a church, you could like to go to church on Sundays and then like to this comedian and this book and what if they're all different value systems and you could like be, like preaching spirituality and just not living it. A part of you wants to be spiritual, a part of you wants to be like a rock star, like all this different personalities. They all need to be combined into one. A part of you that wants to. There's a part of you that hurts maybe when it gives money away, or maybe a part of you that feels animosity towards someone or something like that. But then again, you still feel like on your best day, you're like, I love the world, I love people, everything's fine. And then there's that one day where you're just like, I freaking hate people. I really wish that, you know,
yeah,
things that you shouldn't wish. So you see what I'm saying? Those personality mix is not ideal for the journey. So that's the mysteries of annihilating the legion through perception and consciousness by being awake and noticing them. Once they're noticed, game over.
yeah, yeah. Just being consistent.
Yeah, like they said, pitch your tent and stay watchful.
Yeah,
Like a thief in the night could come, like lightning.
yeah. I was just recalling the original line that you know the concept of legion. What was it? Was it from the Book of Mark? Like, I am legion, for we are many.
Yep.
Yeah,
Hmm. Let's see.
yeah, and that's supposed to be. I'm just trying to recall the specific details of that. I guess story. Was it that Jesus was encountering this one demon, or demons per se? I don't remember the
Let
details
me
on that
see
one.
if I could find that. Try to find my tab. So what was the quote?
The quote was, "I am legion, for we are many."
Mark, what is your name? Jesus asked. What is your name? My name is Legion. He replied, for we are many. Then Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" "My name is Legion." He replied, "Yes." He's talking about all the different personalities within himself. Exactly. Legion speaking to, yes, of course, and the story would apply to yourself, right?
Yeah.
So it would be talking to your part of you, that knows what's up, that knows who's within you lurking,
Yeah.
all the multiplicities that need to be annihilated with the laser of the sun, which is just applying wisdom, applying sight, and being aware and paying attention, which people don't. The Malay Pial said esoteric keys of common sense. Some of the most esoteric occult knowledge is the most common sense of all things that are easily missed and ignored by the masses. And just being simply aware of it transforms you slowly.
Yeah.
Like
But
the
I guess
snake,
you can go ahead.
like the snake being evil when it's really just a symbol, symbolic for shedding the skin, shedding your physical self and rising above.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. The snake represents that. The two aspects you have. Now that remember that torch field, you have that snake is that force that wants to go, Eve attempts to go down into the dielectric plane of inertia. It's like a scientific. It's a yearning for the body. Tree of life is a yearning for the spirit.
Yeah.
That's why usually when people live a very spiritualized life, a lot of the things that they used to like, essentially, pleasure, a lot of stuff like that. You know what? They don't want to drink anymore. They don't want to. There's a lot of things that just it doesn't feel the same anymore, right? Because you have a new taste.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like almost in the same sense of like, say, eating junk food for like a good portion of your life, and you read a health book saying, "Oh, this junk food's bad for you," and this is what it does to you. And now suddenly it's just like I can't enjoy it anymore because I know if I'm doing that, it's harming me in the
Now
background.
there's a phase. There's a phase of the journey that still will eat it, even while it knows, and that's also a place part of us that needs to be transmuted.
Mm-hmm.
Can't be ignored. The part of us that still will go against ourselves, even with knowledge.
Ah.
How many of us have know things that still make mistakes?
Um. Yeah. Sometimes, like even for me, like not very often, but even like sometimes I'll eat like certain foods, like like I don't know, pancakes or nachos, even though like I know they're not the best thing to be eating, but
Yeah, I think more like it's more deeper than that. I think it's more about like it's not right to say that to someone, but you do it anyway.
uh,
It's not right to get angry and out of place, but you do it anyway. Or you like, it's not right to like. There's just it becomes more subtle when you like right like like in the beginning, right? You have to like it's certain things, but right, but then it gets more subtle. Like sometimes it's not about like oh you're gonna go rob a bank. Like maybe you're stealing someone's intellectual property. Maybe you're stealing someone's um, mindset or friend or something. You know what I mean? Like
hmm,
maybe you're coming in on someone's friendship with someone else, right? Are you stealing a pancake? No, but you could, but you're stealing a friendship maybe, and like see how it gets more subtle as the path rises.
uh,
So like sometimes, like it just gets different like that. Like, but yeah, fundamentally, it would be true that like yeah, if you smoke tobacco and you know it's wrong, yeah, it's wrong. Like I know that smoking like weed is wrong. Like inhaling smoke is wrong, and I do it occasionally. And you know,
hmm,
everyone has that. So, but never be guilty on yourself for things like, especially material things of such a small regard. Find things in you that are more like deep-rooted anger, hatred, um, the liar within, the thief, the judger, let's get down to those things, right?
hmm,
Yeah. Who better judge
That's
you than yourself, right?
yeah, yeah, get down and dirty with yourself to find what's going on. And like at first it is going to be true, like, all right, wake up early. Every morning, take your spiritual bath, eat your vegan food, be very spiritual, don't touch coffee, alcohol, weed, right? Very careful. But there's a time on the path where, you might have a cup of coffee, right? But you're moderated now, and sometimes, you'll well find yourself doing things that, you're like, hey, I hate this, I do this still. I know it's not right, but I continue. That's transmuting. You're aware of it, and that doesn't excuse the behavior nor the consequences, but it doesn't, nonetheless, it happens. So to recognize it.
What is sin? Is it a list of these 10 rules? No, it's whatever you consider yourself to be gluttonous or sinful or more in abundance than what it should be, right?
Yeah,
Sin is living in your emotions, dwelling in your emotions.
yeah. And the like Manly P. Hall said, the Ten Commandments are universal. Without the Ten Commandments, like Manly P. Hall says that if you disobey the Ten Commandments, your whole energy field would be disgusting and putrefied with holes, because you would be an adulterer, a fornicator, a thief, a liar, an idol worshiper, a wrathful, like you'd be pretty much a piece of crap if you didn't obey all the Ten Commandments, basically. Now, if you obey them from a really religious, fundamental, fanatical, we have levels here, right? We're talking at the highest, most spiritual level. The Ten Commandments have always, and right, they're from the 42, before there was 42. It's like, but the Bible kind of found the 10 main ones that kind of encapsulate all 42, I think. And I think that those 10 relate to the 10 initiations that we have to overcome according to the Gnostic traditions. Each commandment represents a transmutation of a Sephiroth, and the 9 minor initiations to get to the major mysteries of the 3 mountains. So that all that information can be found with Samael Weor. Read the book 3 Mountains by Samael Weor. Talks about the 9 major mysteries. 10 commandments all equal things that we have to overcome. But the thing, like they said, like um thou shalt not have any other gods before me. Does that mean that the people that worship Krishna are going to hell? No. It means like what you're saying, your inner God, not your God, right? Like I'm God, I'll just your connection.
Yeah.
It's talking from an inner perspective. Then it says thou shalt not steal. It's not just talking about, like, right, we steal energy from ourselves,
Right, yeah.
right? Like if we use drugs, like let's say we use cocaine, do you know that we're stealing? We're stealing, but we're not stealing bread or money.
Right.
Um, if we're like, if we're not compensating people for what they do, and we know that that's stealing too. Like, there's just a lot of ways you can steal. What's another commandment? Still, thou shalt not bear false witness.
Yeah.
Bearing false witness, that could have, like you should never lie about someone. That's the worst thing you could do, to tarnish someone's reputation and to say that they were guilty of a crime that they didn't commit.
Which those I think are out of like the first few pages of the Emerald Tablet of Thoth, the 10 Commandments. So that which is like the Bible, for alchemy. The Emerald
Yeah.
Tablet.
Oh, yeah.
So that's direct connection between direct inner alchemy and the Bible, because the 10 Commandments, like those are just, it's a lump sum from the Egyptian Book of the Dead, and which before that was the Emerald Tablet.
Yep, and we just have to find out, where did these vestments come from, right? Where did these mistakes come from? Where do you get to the point of lying about someone else? When do you get to the point of coveting other people's, like, it's not right. Also, to even like want someone else's like position or power or path. In the Bhagavad Gita, it says don't follow someone else's path, even if you feel like you're better than them, because it's not your path. So
Yep.
I think we're gonna wrap it up there, and I really enjoy doing this. Thanks so much for coming, and we're not gonna do part 3 of this. We're gonna be going to the next round of the Zodiac, the next 3, and check out my YouTube channel for some upcoming updates, some discoveries, and yeah, if you have any questions or you guys still want to hang out, be here for a couple more minutes. great.
Hey, Chris, what's your email? I was just curious.
I'd say let's do crccim, that is, at gmail.com. crccim, that is, at gmail.com.
Did you watch any of those YouTube videos for like that old world?
Yes, I
American?
did.
Did
Yeah,
you?
man. Yeah, I did. I'm blown away.
There's some good stuff in there.
Yeah. Thank you. And I've been learning about like maybe that what if there was already African Americans here in America,
Yeah, yeah. They
right? And
hit,
they're not from other countries. They just were here already.
yeah.
Whoa,
So there's
mind
a
blown.
famous quote from Hitler before he died in like one of the Nazi newspapers, and he talked about how America was already going to win, and he goes, "What the Americans did is they stole God's jewel, and God's jewel is the black man. He's the original Hebrew, or he's that lost tribe that we always talk about, the lost tribe. Well, he is that the Indians, the Aztecs, the Mayans. Like there's all like these dead ends with all when you look into it. It's like where'd they go? They disappeared. They vanquished, but he talks about that's what America did is they took their identity. Like there's really no slave ships, there's no boats like in a museums. There's not really a history down that road because what they did, they stole their history. They stole it.
Mm,
They didn't think they were brought over here and they didn't have a heritage because if they thought like down deep, like yeah, they're slaves, but their home is just that there, or you know what I mean? They just, you know what I mean? But they took everything and then confused everybody. And
wow.
that is, the original Hebrew, I
So
guess.
where do we come from?
That's the confusing part, the Caucasian, which is ironically enough in Turkey, where they said Noah crashed the boat, is the Caucasus Mountains, and that's where they said after the flood, that's where white people came, Caucasian race came about. It just happened to be on the Caucasus Mountain. But then, if there's a lot of that Anunnaki talk, which I don't really enjoy, but you have to
No,
listen
get
to
into
it,
any of it.
And
I believe we're all created from the 7 planets of the 12 zodiac.
there's something weird with our genetic makeup, like with with the melon and how just everything about our it's weird because all of the different races can intermate and still have babies. Where like a tiger and a lion, if they have a liger, they can never reproduce. But
Yeah.
humans are the one thing that's been genetically modified, but can still like accept that God particle or God element to continue to reproduce in that image. Does that make sense?
Isn't it just because we're higher level than animals? We have higher privileges?
It's high, yeah, it's higher privileges, but it's the genetic. When you look at it from genetic, like over so history timelines don't make sense. We can all agree in
Yeah.
general don't make sense.
Yeah.
But like, are the genetic changes with how? I mean, evolution's a joke, but even to think about how you know how do we come about as because the Caucasian
Wouldn't it just have
race.
been from the northern hemisphere, closer to the cold areas? What's
Well,
wrong
the
with
Native
that?
Americans have a great like, old tale that it talks about that God gave earthly responsibilities to all like the seven main races, and they gave the white man was in charge of the north, the snow, the land of the ice, like to keep and then I think the African Americans were actually the sea, the Indians were the earth, like the ground, the earth,
Oh,
like
interesting.
so yeah, it's I remember hearing that tale from like a old Cherokee, like just
It's beautiful.
wise man, yeah.
Nice.
The Giants are what's really interesting, because they're so hush hush,
I
that
think
they
that the
mess with numbers.
Giants, I think that the Giants may have been an experiment of consciousness, that consciousness decided that it's more convenient to be this size. And it decided to start over and try this instead. It's better off this way.
Yeah, it's hard because everything we've been taught is a lie. I heard yesterday that they found a book directly relating Tartaria to the Mongolian Empire. That Genghis
Wow.
Khan was Tartarian, and that's why they painted him as such a monster. Is because they killed they destroyed a civilization or a race or a people, then they demonized things. But it was like some book of genealogy. It shows Genghis Khan was part of that, Tartary, I think is what you call it.
What is this you sent? Nick? Wow. Wow. Odin. The Nordic holy book. Hmm. In their tradition. That'd be good. Viking poetry. Wow. This is gonna be awesome. Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it. Hey, well, thanks everyone. Appreciate seeing you guys, Derek, Nick, and hope to see you guys again probably Saturday, 11. So, have a good one.
Hey, you too. Thank you.
See ya.